You won't believe what happened in this school hallway. Stick around, because this story will show you that true strength isn't about rank or ribbons, but about the sacrifices we make for those we love. And if this story touches your heart, do us a favor, hit that like button and subscribe for more powerful tales of everyday heroes. The air in the high school auditorium was thick with the scent of floor wax and adolescent anxiety. It was career day, but for USMC Captain Mark Rourke, it felt more like a tedious, mandatory formation. He stood ramrod straight near the stage, his dress blues immaculate, his gaze sweeping over the chattering students with a mixture of discipline and impatience. He was a man carved from granite and doctrine, a believer in order, truth, and the unblemished chain of command. His presentation on the virtues of the Marines had been interrupted by the soft, persistent squeak of a janitor's mop bucket. An older man, maybe in his late 50s, with a kind, weathered face and shoulders that seemed to carry an invisible weight, was working his way along the back wall. He moved with a quiet efficiency, but every squeak of the wheels grated on Rourke's last nerve. The final straw came when Rourke, pointing to a map of Iwo Jima, declared, "And that, students, is where true heroes were forged in fire and sacrifice." The janitor, his name tag reading, Elias, paused his mopping. He didn't look up, but his voice, soft yet clear, carried across the suddenly quiet room. Forged in fire, yes, sir. But the real battle for Hill 362A was the Eastern Ridge, not the main concourse. The concourse was a feint. A stunned silence fell. Every student head swiveled from the captain in his glorious uniform to the janitor with his mop. Rourke's face flushed a dangerous shade of crimson. The audacity. A janitor, correcting a United States Marine captain on military history. In front of an audience. It was an affront to everything he stood for. "Excuse me." Rourke's voice was a low, dangerous rumble. He strode down from the stage, his boots echoing on the linoleum. "What did you just say?" Elias finally looked up, his eyes a calm, startling blue. "The Eastern Ridge, Captain. That's where Sergeant Rafael Martinez single-handedly took out 3 machine gun nests. The history books, they sometimes get it wrong. And I suppose you were there." Rourke sneered, stopping a few feet from the man, his posture radiating intimidation. "No, sir," Elias said quietly, looking down at his mop bucket. "I just read a lot." "This man is a liar," Rourke announced to the room, his voice dripping with contempt. He gestured dismissively at Elias. "This is what happens when people who have never served, who have never earned the right to speak on such matters, decide to spread misinformation. It's disrespectful to the memory of every real Marine who fought and died on that island." Elias flinched as if struck. A deep sadness clouded his blue eyes, but he didn't argue. He simply nodded, a slow, weary gesture, and went back to mopping, a faint tremor in his hands. The students shifted uncomfortably. The scene was painfully awkward. Just then, the main doors to the auditorium swung open. A woman stood there. She wasn't tall, but she commanded the space effortlessly. Her service dress blues were adorned with the gold stars of a Navy Admiral. Her silver hair was cut in a no-nonsense style, and her eyes, sharp and intelligent, took in the scene in a single, sweeping glance. It was Admiral Sarah Vance, a legend in the Navy, and the surprise keynote speaker the principal had been secretly promoting. The students, sensing the shift in power, fell completely silent. Captain Rourke, seeing the Admiral, immediately snapped to attention, his previous fury replaced by rigid formality. "Admiral Vance. Captain Mark Rourke, United States Marine Corps. An honor, ma'am." Admiral Vance didn't immediately acknowledge him. Her gaze was fixed on the janitor, who had frozen, his back to her, his head bowed low over his mop bucket. A look of profound recognition, followed by heartbreak, crossed her face. "At ease, Captain," she said, her voice calm but carrying immense authority. She began to walk, not towards the stage, but towards the janitor. The click of her heels was the only sound in the vast room. She stopped a few feet behind Elias. "Look at me, Sergeant," she said, her voice softer now, laced with an emotion no one could quite place. Elias didn't move. "Sergeant Elias Thorne," she said, her voice firming up, ringing with command. "That is an order." Slowly, painfully, Elias Thorne turned around. The humble janitor was gone, replaced by a man standing at a kind of emotional attention, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. Admiral Vance took another step forward. She reached out and, to the astonishment of everyone present, she gently touched the simple, worn name tag on his custodial uniform. "I've been looking for you for 10 years, she whispered, her voice cracking slightly. Then, she turned to face the stunned Captain Rourke and the entire auditorium. "Captain," she said, her voice now clear and powerful, projecting to every corner. "You just accused one of the most decorated, most courageous Marines of the entire Gulf War of being a liar." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "This, Janitor, was my communications chief during Operation Desert Storm. His Humvee was hit by an IED. While bleeding from shrapnel, with 2 of his men down, he dragged them to safety and then, using a damaged radio, managed to call in an airstrike on an enemy position that would have wiped out our entire platoon. The intelligence he provided that day was so precise, so brilliant, it changed the outcome of that skirmish." She turned her gaze back to Elias, her expression full of a painful admiration. "The story he told you about Hill 362A. He wasn't reading it in a book. He was listening to his grandfather, a Marine who fought there, tell him that story every single night when he was a boy. It was his grandfather's story. The history books are wrong, and Sergeant Thorne here was just trying to honor the truth." Captain Rourke looked as if the world had just dropped out from under him. His face was ashen. I didn't know." "Of course you didn't know," Admiral Vance said, not unkindly. "He never told anyone. He received a full medical discharge and a Navy Cross. But he turned down a promotion, a pension, and a comfortable desk job. He gave it all up." Her voice dropped again, filled with a heartbreaking tenderness. "He gave it all up to come home and be a single father to his infant daughter when his wife passed away from cancer. He chose diapers over dress blues. Mopping floors to put his little girl through college. That, Captain Rourke, is a heroism no uniform can fully contain." The silence in the auditorium was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Then, a single student began to clap. Then another, and another, until the entire room was thundering with a standing ovation, not for the Admiral, but for the Janitor, for Elias Thorne, the silent hero who had been in their midst all along. Elias stood there, overwhelmed, tears finally tracing paths through the dust on his cheeks. Captain Rourke, humbled and shattered, walked slowly up to him. He didn't salute. Instead, he did something far more meaningful. He extended his hand. "Sergeant Thorne," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am so sorry. I was wrong. I judged a book by its cover, and the story inside is one of the greatest I have ever heard." Elias looked at the offered hand, then up at the captain's face. After a moment, he took it, a slow, forgiving smile touching his lips. "It's just Elias, Captain. And it's okay. We all serve in different ways." The story of Captain Rourke and the janitor he called a liar is a powerful reminder to never underestimate the person next to you. That single dad mopping the floors might have a story that could bring an admiral to tears. He chose love over glory, duty to family over career. That's the kind of strength that truly changes the world. If this story of sacrifice and redemption moved you, if it made you think twice about judging someone by their job, then share this video. Let's spread this message of humility and honor. And make sure you subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell, because we find stories like this one, stories of real, unsung heroes, and we bring them to you every single week. Thanks for watching.